PR's Top Pros Talk, Connecting a Distributed Workforce, featuring Dave Jacobs, co-founder and co-CEO of Homethrive. And here's your host, Doug Simon.
Dave, I think it would be great for the audience if you first gave us a little bit of context about what Homethrive does.
To provide a little context, let me start with kind of the problem that we've seen and we solve. There are about 53 million family caregivers out there who are supporting aging loved ones and family members with special needs. And if anybody has ever gone through that, they know how incredibly challenging, frustrating, and difficult it can be over a long period of time. It takes a tremendous amount of time and pressure, and there really aren't good resources to help somebody navigate the challenges of being a family caregiver. So Homethrive was created by myself and David Greenberg to be a family caregiver support platform to provide navigation, coordination, and products and services to help reduce that work worry and stress for family caregivers, whether they're caring for an aging loved one, family member with special needs, and even a young family member who needs childcare.
Yeah, that's an experience many people will have to go through. One of the challenges you face is your workforce is distributed. How do you keep them connected?
Yeah, we've certainly experienced this, and it was amplified during COVID, and we started hiring a lot more people in different areas. So we've had to learn as we go. And so we've gotten very deliberate about our practices to try to keep them connected. And we do a variety of different things. One, we just make sure we over communicate on even some of the more mundane things. It could be position changes. It could be new customers and things of that nature. We try to do a very good job to over communicate those things. We have an all hands meeting every 2 weeks where we share a variety of different topics, things that are happening in different parts of the business, success stories we've had with different members, and each one of our members, our employees, I should say, share something about themselves, and they rotate through that period, so we get to know each other a little bit better. But also, it's really important, not just at the entire company level, but we found it's really effective for the individual groups, whether it's our marketing group, our engineering group, to do a lot to promote cohesiveness amongst their team. So they have events on a pretty regular basis virtually that they will do, and they will do kind of sharing opportunities, and to leave a little bit of time in between meetings where you normally would do it in person and kind of get to know somebody personally, but to give some space for people so you can get to know them personally, even on Zoom calls. But the other thing we've made a real intentional effort about is to make sure we do meet in person. Because if people are distributed and they never get together in person, there's no connectivity. So we have different groups, our sales team, our marketing team, our engineering team, they get together at least on a quarterly basis. So they get to know each other, spend some time together, and make it so it's not a pure virtual environment. We feel like the integration of those things has allowed us to be more effective, give people the flexibility of being in a distributed work environment, but also the connectivity. And the last thing I'll mention is probably has always been very important, is still very important, is the relationship between the manager or leader and the individual. In a connected in-person environment, people invest time, they go out to lunch and things. We think that's still very important. And so we encourage our managers to spend time to get to know individuals and really kind of create that relationship, because we find the old adage is true, which is people leave people, not companies. And so we want to make sure there's that connectivity at the manager and employee level.
Yeah. And what has been the role for you of PR? Obviously, a lot of the people in our audience are communicators. You're, in effect, a tech startup that's growing. Mm-hmm. How do you see the importance of it? Obviously, you have a PR-friendly persona yourself.
What I might perceive as over-communication is probably not over-communication from an employee standpoint and a colleague standpoint. And the rule of thumb I think about is, if I'm not bored of the message and feel like I'm droning on about it ad nauseum, I probably haven't communicated enough. Because people, they learn and understand things in different ways. And oftentimes for all of us, it takes multiple exposures to things to really understand it, and also to believe that it's true and it's important. And that by over communicating, whether it's on Slack, the all hands meetings, I send out, we don't have an all hands meeting, I do a video for 3 or 4 minutes that I do usually at home, and send a quick video kind of recognizing certain contributions and progress in the business. And in the beginning, I thought it was kind of a vain effort and a waste of time, but I started to get very positive feedback on that. So I continue to do it on a regular basis.
Why are optimism and transparency such key factors for business management? And do you agree that they're not necessarily in opposition to each other?
No, they're not, but they can be at times. We think transparency is critically important. One, because it builds trust with employees, and that's kind of one of the most important kind of areas of currency that you have. And if people don't trust in the organization and the leadership, they're far less likely to stay and bring their whole selves to work. The other thing that's very valuable we find with transparency is that it really gets more people engaged in some of the challenges that you might face at the current time. Their problem-solving skills they bring to those issues, and we're able to get to better decisions faster and better solutions faster by having more people engaged in these kinds of issues. And so that's really helpful. It's really important to convey with that transparency a sense of optimism. And we think a lot about kind of the Stockdale paradox, which you may remember from Jim Collins' book from some years ago, Good to Great. And in that, Admiral Stockdale talks about it's critically important to confront the reality and the facts as they are today and to really understand them, but to believe that you control the outcome and that there's a better future kind of that awaits you. And we really believe that. It's important to understand what's happening today, the challenges we face today, but to believe that we can kind of shape our destiny, influence that destiny, and that there's going to be a tremendous future for Homethrive, but also the people that we serve kind of in that process.
I think from your position, you might be in a unique spot to talk about what businesses can do, given that odds are they've got a number of their own employees who are dealing with these issues of having to support a family member, to be a caregiver with the toll that that takes. Any advice for employers on what they can do to avoid mistakes and do a better job with that?
It's a good question. And I think it relates in some ways to the question around transparency, which is historically, most family caregivers don't talk about it. When they have newborns and they're pregnant, there's a lot of conversation, but most people suffer in silence. In fact, 70% of employees don't share that they are kind of going through this family caregiving experience. So promoting transparency and openness within the workplace can be really effective as a starting point. And that starts with leaders being very open about some of their family caregiving challenges and struggles. Because as you said in the beginning, almost everybody goes through this. Yeah. It's a natural part of kind of living and aging and family dynamics. So one is kind of promoting kind of the openness and transparency so that you start to understand those things, and then providing a level of support for people so that they can be fully present at work, but also kind of live up to their family caregiving responsibilities. That family caregivers, 1 in 3 family caregivers will leave their job, not because they want to stop working, but because they feel like they can't balance their career, their kind of family responsibilities, their children, their spouses, that sort of thing. And we don't think that has to be a choice, but it's got to be in the open, and there's got to be support for people to know that they're not alone going through this, and there's a way to help them navigate these challenges. People are spending over 20 hours a week doing all kinds of stuff, and they don't really know how to do it. They don't feel confident about it. And we really think that by providing the right kind of support, people can be there for their families, their parents, be there for their career, and being able to kind of thrive during this 4 to 5 year period where they're in that sandwich generation balancing all those things.
And you raise a really important point that those times when they're spending those 20 hours, they're not like happy-go-lucky walk on the beach times. They're extremely stressful. We're worried about someone's health. Maybe you don't know what's going on with their diagnosis. Any additional tips that managers can use to sort of make sure they try and keep their workforce intact while people are going through this reality of life?
People have to recognize that if they don't give people some space and support, they will end up leaving, because if they're faced with a choice between kind of being there for their parents, even if they have a complicated relationship, and being there for their career, they will opt out of their career for a short period of time. One is acknowledging it, giving people support, but also I would say it gets back even to the conversation around a distributed workforce, which is giving people flexibility. And I think the idea of work-family balance is kind of being replaced with more of integration between the two things, and recognizing that people meet some of their family obligations during the day and the workday. But if you've got really talented, committed people, which most organizations do, they will find a way to get the work done. They just need to be able to integrate it with some of their other family responsibilities, and to be able to give people some flexibility and trust that they will get their work done. But it's important to give them the support, because navigating this is really challenging. I went through this. I was a healthcare executive. I knew a lot about healthcare, supported family, the means to support my parents, and I didn't have a clue. And if I had had somebody be my guide to navigate things, it would have reduced my stress tremendously, would have given me more confidence, and would have saved me a tremendous amount of time. So I think providing employees with that kind of support is critical. Our motto is, we think Homethrive does a great job providing this support, but if it's not Homethrive, we strongly encourage an organization to offer some sort of navigation, coordination, product services support for family caregivers.
Yeah, and I think one way to really build sort of connection of employees to an organization is being to provide them with support in their most stressful, critical times.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what's interesting too. It's not just the people going through it at that time, but younger people in the organization who want to work for an organization that has a sense of mission and that cares about its employees, they notice. And even if they're not going through the family caregiving challenges at that moment, they see that the company supports family caregivers. They know at some point they're going to be there. They may have seen it with their parents caring for their grandparents, and it does improve their connectivity and their willingness to stay with the organization. And we're very proud of the fact that we've been able to help family caregivers kind of significantly reduce that intent to resign. We see people like kind of the national average, about a third want to leave their job. By virtue of providing them this level of support, we're able to reduce that from about a third to 6%. So the vast majority can be there for their career and be there for their families.
Well, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing your wisdom on these important topics. As sort of mental health of workers has been a big topic as we do this show, and clearly helping them during their most stressful times is going to pay off huge benefits both for the employee and the business.
Yeah, we believe so. It's critically important, I would say, to have mental health services to help them deal. But what we're trying to do is deal with some of the root causes of those things. And while we can't eliminate aging, we can make the process much more palatable, much easier, and frankly, a much better experience and a more productive experience for employees.
Great. Well, this has been a productive experience for me. Thanks for sharing your wisdom.
It was great talking to you. I really appreciate the questions.